Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 53 of the On the Blue Line podcast. We call this Monday Morning Roll Call, and I am your host and founder, Wayne Mulder. This week, how do you spend your time? The Monday Morning Roll Call starts now.
On my honor, I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for their actions. I will always uphold the Constitution, the community, and the agency I serve.
So, whether you're joining us this week on the podcast or you're joining me here on YouTube, I want to start out with a story, and this one is out of Florida. Of course, all the good stories are out of Florida, right? That's typically the way that goes. But this one is not funny, maybe not even humorous. It's more Florida police are searching for a wanted cow. Now, if you're from a different part of the country and not from Florida in general, you may not even understand that there are quite a bit of beef cattle right here in the state of Florida. In fact, it's one of the largest producers of beef cattle. Most people don't realize that. If you come primarily to Florida for vacation time and to hang out at our beaches, or if you come to hang out at the Mouse World, or any of the numerous reasons people come to Florida other than cattle ranching, you may not have any idea that these little critters were here long before all the northerners. However, what's humorous about this one is that there is a cow on the loose and that it's been going on for weeks. So, since the police department there has been unable to get this cow out of Pembroke Pines, they decided they needed to put out a wanted ad. So, they put this, if you can see this here on the video, out on a tweet. And it says, wanted, for several months now, a loose cow has been seen wandering the area of Sheridan and I-75. It has evaded capture and assisting cow herders since January. If you know the owner of this cow or its whereabouts, please let us know. And they go on to say that the cow is female cow, brown and white head, faster than it looks, talented fence jumper, and enjoys pools. So this cow has happened to be a little bit of a nuisance, and it jumps fences and goes into pools at all sorts of places around there and has been spotted by many, many people. So if you find the cow, please let the Pembroke Pines Police Department know, and they will be happy for your assistance. I am absolutely certain. So this week, what I really wanted to talk about, if you listen to the last podcast, if you listen to the last few podcasts that I've had, I've been talking about this pod fest that I went to last weekend. And I had a great opportunity to meet a lot of great people. Well, there was a keynote. His name's Travis Chappell. He's doing some great things for small businesses, doing some great things for entrepreneurs, and doing some great things for fellow podcasters such as myself. And I reached out to him, sent him a message via Instagram, and he had responded back to me. And it was just kind of one of these, hey, who are you kind of questions. And he reached out with something that kind of stuck with me. He said, how do you spend most of your time these days? So I received the message and I read it and I thought about it and I'm like, well, that's an interesting question. What do you mean? How do I spend most of my time these days? How do I do that? So I thought about it for a while and somewhat jokingly, somewhat serious, I responded with working. Because whether we're talking doing the podcast or we're talking my full-time job or we're talking teaching at the academy, all these different things that I mention on the podcast, I was like, well, I guess how do I spend most of my time these days is working. That's what it is. And the time went by and I started thinking about what he said and the question that he asked. And I said, well, that's an odd question, but it really makes you think, right? I mean, how do you spend most of your time these days? And what does that say about you? So when I responded to him, he said, well, I have found that what I like about that question, as opposed to the what do you do question, is it elicits more thinking. It elicits more thought process about your life and why you do what you do. So when I responded to him, I said, well, I think how I spend most of my time these days is trying to make a difference in the lives of others. And he, unknowingly, he actually helped me kind of get to that point. He helped me come to the realization that that's what I do. Whether we're talking the time that I spend, I'd say my day job, but it's technically my night job, but the time that I spend at my full time career, it's helping other people. It's helping them find where they're at and try to help them get to the next level. It's what this podcast is all about. It's what my writings are all about. It's what my speaking is all about. It's what the academy is all about. It's helping other people. So then as I started thinking about that and going a little bit deeper into it, it kind of came to the topic that I wanted to talk about this week. So when we talk about time and we talk about the time that we spend for something, it says something about us. If you have an NBA player, or you've got an NFL player, you got some sports player, they're going to be spending the majority of their time in order to excel in whatever sport that is. And it's going to make sense. You're going to be like, well, this person spends X amount of time doing this because this is something they want to excel at. And so how they spend their time will oftentimes lead to the success or the failures or whatever it may be down the road, right? Well, so how we spend time can be for training purposes, but first and foremost, it's almost always speaks of our priorities. Wherever you're at in life, and I know for a lot of us, we got a lot going on. You know, I've been working on kind of who this message is for. And as I think about who this message is for, I really find that it's for someone just like me. Someone who's been in this career for a while, and maybe you've been in it 6 years, maybe 7 years, 8, 10, 15 years, and it's starting to drag on you, not because you don't still love what you do, but it starts to drag on you because you start to think, my goodness, I've got so many things that I want to accomplish, and yet my time is so full. And you think about family time and you think about time that you want to spend on this or that. Just when we start to create a hierarchy or a list of things that we should be doing, air quotes here if you're not watching the video, the things that we should be doing, from physical fitness to keeping our skills sharp. I mean, you start putting that on a calendar and you're like, my goodness, I can never get all this done. So when it comes to how do you spend most of your time, it speaks to priorities. We have to prioritize it. Time is a finite resource. We only have X amount of days, X amount of hours, X amount of years. And because of that, we have to lay out what we want to do and what is the priority that we give it. If you have young children, that's your priority. And in that phase, you are likely going to be putting most of your time, most of your resources, almost everything into those young children. And then as they get older, as things shift, as maybe you're doing something different, maybe you're starting a small business. I've talked about that before. Maybe you're doing something like this podcast. As you get into doing that, that becomes the new priority. So, how we spend our time these days, it tells us and it tells others about what we prioritize, what is most important to us. And I think the takeaway there, the thing that we need to think about is, what is that for us? Maybe put those down, put them on a list, a 1, 2, 3, 4. What are the most important things that I can be doing to show the priorities in my life? The second thing is it shows us what we are willing to do to improve. How we spend our time improving ourselves shows that dedication to self improvement. So when someone asks you, how do you spend most of your time these days? It's going to show them, first of all, your priorities, but then kind of an underlying subcategory of that is, what do you prioritize about your own self improvement? Maybe it's college. Maybe you're in a career. Maybe you're in law enforcement and it makes sense to go ahead and get that criminal justice degree that you've been talking about. Maybe you were in the service. Thank you. Welcome home. But you were in the service and then you started this career and you've been talking about, well, I really want to finish it. Chances are you already have some credits that you have towards that undergraduate just from the time you spent in the service, just from the time you spent in law enforcement and coming through an academy. Use them. And if this is something that's going to help you now, help you in the future, get that degree. Spend time, whatever it is. But self-improvement doesn't have to be that formal. Self-improvement can be things such as listening to podcasts. It can be time that we spend just in the physical fitness world I just spoke about. Maybe it's practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Maybe it's something that's going to help you both at home and at work. That is that category of self-improvement. And it shows how much we value that by the amount of time that we spend in that area. But the third thing is it shows how we see the future. How we spend our time, it shows the opportunities, it shows the things that we see as valuable for the world ahead, for how the world can be built out. The time we spend building something, maybe it's a baby like this business, maybe it's literally a baby. Whatever that time is, when you spend time with it, nurturing it, allowing it to grow, maybe it is in a faith-based group, maybe it is doing something helping others in your community. That time spent with whatever it is, it begins to grow. And as it grows, it begins to show the future because you're dedicating time and resources and love and nourishment and all these different things to something that will become something later on. So, how you use your time shows your priorities, and in those priorities, it shows what you're willing to do to improve, and it shows how you see the future. And that's the thing, when this week, when we think about how we spend our time, when we think about how our priorities, when we think about all these different areas and how we see the future, understand that what you can do is stop. Just take a moment and look at your schedule. Look at the things you have to get done. Look at the things that you maybe waste a little time on. Maybe a little Netflix, maybe a little Hulu, whatever it is. Nothing wrong with that. But if you are like me and you sit down and you write out 30 things you wish you were doing, and when you get done with your 30 things, you then look over here at this pile and you're like, yeah, but I did spend quite a bit of time on Netflix this week. I mean, really? If that's you, it's me. So if that's you, then maybe what we have to do is we have to prioritize and put that time into the things, into the resources, into the things that are going to make a difference in our lives, in the lives of our family, in the lives of the people that we spend the most time around. So the question that Travis Chappell asked me was, how do you spend most of your time these days? And I hope that you, like me, can say in making a difference in the lives of other people, because ultimately that is the most important thing you can be doing. So I challenge you. I want you to think about that. That does it for this week's Monday Morning Roll Call. I hope to see you next week at Monday Morning Roll Call. And in the meantime, I'll see you out there on the Blue Line. If this is your first time listening or for current information on what is happening, I encourage you to go to our website, ontheblueline.com. Again, ontheblueline.com. On there, you're going to find various links to our podcast, news about what's coming up, and links to our closed Facebook group. This podcast is available anywhere and everywhere that you prefer to stream your podcast, including Apple and Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Thank you so much for joining us as we strive to make a difference in the personal lives of all those who serve. Have a great week.